Welcome back to another Habs Locker Room Report with hockey coach, your coach Francis directly from before country at Thailand. One amazing great Wednesday night, March 27, 2024. It's directly from Hawkesbury City, ready to rock and roll, Mr. Marko Larabi, and from Toronto. And we just saw him last night with Luciano and Danny. Mr. Enortap back in the house tonight.
Which one of those was I, Coach? Oh, that's hilarious. Always something
That's his
new.
new intro of the show now, Mr. Enortap. We're going to find one for Marko, but I start walking a little bit more. It's fun boy. But Mr. Enortap, looked like you have a great time last night.
Yeah, the Leafs lost, of course. We had a great time.
How about that? Here we go. We have a few people knock the door. Going to welcome everybody first. And we'll see what we got. Mr. Abby Nation is in the house. Thanks to be with the Hockey Nation show. I appreciate that. Watch your head because it's coming
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
about that. So we're going to fix
Tabination.
this very well. Knock the door very well here. What it look like here. Put it up here. We should be fine. We should be all right. My mic is up right now because I'm doing other videos. But anyway, Mr. KLS is in the house tonight. Welcome back, Mr. KLS from North Carolina. Welcome back, Alexandre Maillard. Mr. Alexandre watched his Colorado Avalanche and the Montreal Canadiens last night, so it was good for him watching both of his favorite team at the same time. Moderator Ron with Kings is in the house tonight. Welcome back, Ron with Kings from Utah. Big fan of the Los Angeles Kings. We have Mr. AK knock the door directly from Edmonton with the Oilers. So Oilers came back yesterday to get a W. Welcome back. Patrick LaWhite is in the house tonight. Thanks to the other, is looking for a home run tomorrow for 3.6 for Otani. And then Roy from Bangkok is in the house tonight. Welcome back, Roy. Happy Thursday morning. Thanks to be with our Canadian show. And that's pretty much what we got here. I've been since I need to change my profile about that on his picture. Do I miss someone? I don't know. I didn't see Luciano. I did not see Luciano, right? I think I saw him at the beginning, but I don't think so. Anyhow, that's
No.
what we got tonight. We have two NHL game at that moment. And NHL, only two on the program. Ottawa, a W tonight.
Ottawa?
I will give them a Montreal Canadiens another way to understanding. Late right now, 5-2 at the beginning of the third period against the Buffalo Sabres. And then the Tampa Bay Lightning. Nobody talk about them, but the last couple of games, they're looking better and better. Tampa Bay take the lead 2-1 against the Boston Bruins. Boston Bruins have a very difficult schedule until the end of the season. They are the worst schedule-wise, most difficult for the rest of the season for the Boston Bruins. And
Yeah,
losing
right
right
now,
now by
coach,
score
still,
2-1. And the Laval Rocket, the last time we checked was 1-1.
yeah, it's 1-1. There's 11 minutes left as we speak. Yeah.
Here we go.
Go Rockets.
The Sharks is in the house, ladies and gentlemen. The Shark from Nashville Predator is in the house. And talking about
Welcome.
Luciano, Mr. Enortap, Mr. Luciano is in the house. Welcome back, Luciano, moderator of the Hockey Nation show. And yeah, it was a good game yesterday, but no fireworks. I have too many expectations, Alexander, about that team. And that's what we got so far in the chat.
Hard to feel sorry for Avalanche fans who,
Have a
have won
couple
like a
cups.
million games in a row that they've won at home. Like the smallest violin in the world playing for Alexander right now for losing last night.
And how many elite players?
Yeah. Fun team to watch, though.
Yeah,
Very
very
fun.
fast.
We have Tony Reardon knock the door. Welcome, Mr. Tony. Thanks so much to be talking in our show. Danny Dubé dropping the probability of Hudson not signing with the Montreal Canadiens today. Well, tell you about him for that one for Danny Dubé. That's pretty much what we got here and the people in the chat. So it looked like we did around everything else. I don't know if you want to talk about something before we start the content, so you headline, everything like that. If you want to bring something.
No, coach. Like I think we'll keep as we go on tonight, guys. We'll keep an eye on in the corner of our eye on the Rocket game. Like it's really important games for those guys trying to get into the playoffs. So we'll RJ or ourselves will give you updates as we go along here. There's like 10 minutes left about, so we'll keep an eye on that as we go along.
That's the biggest game for us tonight. Is that Laval game?
Oh yeah.
Let's go with the subject of the night, the Habs report. Of course, the team effort between the big W against the Colorado yesterday. We talked about this. You follow my Habs daily news. Today was the new record of Uri Sokoski. Habs 2-1. I don't know why I put 2-1 there, but I should put something else, but it's happening there. If we watch my other channel, I went to the Hazy cart. It's not me driving. I was in the back. I got a flat tire over the pit stop, and then finally my other channel. If you hungry, maybe that's the place to watch this. But most of the time, we'll talk about the Montreal Canadiens, and let's start about the headline. Before that, we welcome Mr. William McClary.
Yes, William, welcome.
Mr. William, thanks to be with our Canadian show. And let's start with the first headline of the night with Mr. Marko. And Marko said, "Proud Pop Paul."
Proud Papa, right? And this coach and Enortap, like this works on a couple different levels, right? So obviously, Martin Saint Louis, I think in his last press conference, mentioned that the two most important things to him in life are family and hockey, in that order, right? So obviously, very proud dad with his kids, and having to take a little time off to go home and be with the family. So obviously, he's very proud of his kids, of his actual family. But what I found very interesting is listening to his comments after the game and before the game, just how proud he was of how the whole team and really how the whole organization was able to manage things while he was away, right? Watching the games, like obviously he did watch the games, and we know that he was in touch with Letowski every day, and trying to plan and everything. But overall, he was really proud of how his other coaches, like his coaching staff, and how the players really comported themselves while he was away. Not the results weren't always there on this road trip, obviously, but it was a tough road trip, guys. Like pretty amazing results for this road trip, 2-2-1. Much better than probably anybody in the hockey world, including this panel, probably imagined it would play out. So, overall, I think what we've been talking about here, guys, for the last while is just, wanting to see progression and chasing consistency, right? So now, even though consistency in terms of wins isn't necessarily there yet, right? But we're seeing a pretty consistent level of effort from the team. And I think I mentioned this yesterday, Coach. And I think I put this comment on your daily video today. But going back, say, to the Boston game, remember Saint Louis? This was before Saint Louis took his leave. But remember, heading into that game, you knew that after Montreal had got trounced pretty good by Boston, a lot of times during the year, Montreal was really beating themselves, right, with unforced errors, panicking at different times of the game, trying to force things. And often they're kind of feeding the other team's offense a lot with turnovers and stuff like that. So going into that Boston game a couple weeks ago, the thing that was most impressive to me is just how patient the team was. And I remember being in the chat talking to everybody, and maybe some people felt that the game was boring and that there wasn't much going on. But sometimes that's, especially with the roster that Montreal has right now, that's kind of the way that you have to play, right? Like you just have to kind of wait for your chances, play really, really good, solid, following your game plan. And to me, that was a really interesting turning point. Remember that game early in the season where we talked about Montreal set a new standard, right? They played against Vegas. They set that new standard in terms of being able to compete with that. So to me, the Boston game was kind of like even a newer standard that they set, which is, they're very comfortable playing in these lower scoring games. They're suppressing shots a little bit more than before. The shot totals have come down. So, and we saw that against Colorado too, right? Like, so these are really good teams, guys, that Montreal's playing. And as we know, there's been a lot of 1 goal games this year. So he's been in these games, but sometimes they've only been able to stay in the game because of goaltending. And it's not to say that Montabo didn't have, like, he did have a very good game, but it's not the only reason why Montreal won last night. Overall, they just played a really good, strong team game. He played his part. Montembeau played his part in that win, but overall, it was just a really great team win. So you can see the pride that's just radiating from Saint Louis, and you can tell he's a bit emotional. After he came back, he took the opportunity to meet with each player to thank them for how they managed things while he was away. So, guys, like, as Habs fans, like, we should also feel, I don't know if we use the word proud, but hopeful. Like, this is a really good development. A lot of people might just look at how many goals they're scoring and how many wins, but hockey nerds, like, you really, really kind of look at some of those fundamental things that Montreal is doing right now. And Coach and Enortap, like, we've been having this debate even more and more. It seems like every week we talk about this. Like, what's the plan this summer? Like, is management seeing the way that they're playing right now and being able to really start playing a good team game? And let's put that question out there. How close are they? How close are they? I know, Coach,
Good
you have
question.
strong
Good question,
opinions.
Marco. Good
Okay, well, maybe
question.
that's a good lead in. But I know Coach has strong opinions on that one. But all that to say, saying to be very, very proud of his team, and we're very proud of him. It's very nice to have him back. Like, he just not the same with them, right? Like, he's just a great presence
Yeah.
around the team. So we're really happy to have him back. So thoughts, guys? Like,
And
would you like
I would
do you go ahead?
I would go a step further and say not only proud Papa, but also his students are very proud and the children because apparently when he met one on one with all of them, they were just ecstatic. Especially Gooley gave him a big hug and just expressed how happy he was that he was back. And you could see that the team is coming together. It takes a long time, and it's not always guaranteed that you build that chemistry that you are after and seeking as an organization. Sometimes all it takes is a player or two that doesn't buy in, and it's the one rotten apple that destroys the rest, right? So we're on the right track with that. I couldn't agree more, Marco. I think he's thankfully, things look okay with his son, or at least from what we hear, the reports that we hear, so he can focus his attention and distract himself as well by being with the team and evaluating them down the stretch run with about 11 games to go or so. What do you think, Coach?
Great point. Um, what Martin Saint Louis was more happy last night, this is because this is the vision of Martin Saint Louis in 2025, 2026, 2027. And when the team will be better, Marco, when you talk about the patient game, that's what exactly he expects the Montreal Canadiens are going to become one day. This is the kind of game you see from, example, Boston Bruins on every night. This is the kind of game you see from Tampa Bay most of the time. One of Vancouver Canucks beat the Montreal by the score 4-1, I believe, the last week or the weeks before that. That's exactly what Montreal did yesterday. The same pattern of those coaches from John Cooper and Rick Tocchet, where it's a game of patience and to wait and just take the right opposite. The only thing they did not do last night, and we expect at some point they're going to do this, but they are not right now, is the hammer at the end of the game. Like, you need that goal to finish the other team did not come back in the game, and they have a two opportunity power play at least in the last 15 minutes of the third period, maybe the last 10 minutes, and they cannot capitalize on those opportunities. That's maybe the only thing he would said, "Oh, I wish we can get that goal, right? The answering goal."
Separation.
But at the end of the
Yeah.
night, this is a kind of game like exactly on the template of the vision of Martin Saint Louis, and that's what I believe that was the reason behind. It was not only to win and to be proud of his players, but the way he see that is exactly what he would expect to play one day for the Montreal Canadiens. And yes, of course, Colorado again. Every time we hear that, right? It was Tampa Bay, it was Florida, it was Toronto, it was Boston, and now it was Edmonton, and then now it was Colorado. And every time the fans always said, "Oh, they are not motivated. It's just Montreal Canadiens." But at the end of the day, I think we need to start to give credit for the Montreal Canadiens for those kind of performance. Again, the top 10 team in NHL, most of them. So for me, great performance. But again, you're absolutely right, Martin said we find a way to make this team better
Yeah.
with the roster he has right now.
And you know
Yeah.
what,
And
Coach? Very solid teams cannot take nights off. If there's one thing we learned about the NHL is the level of parity that is there, and if you decide to take a night off, anybody and everybody can beat you. Not to suggest that Colorado took the day off or the night off because I thought they played a good game as well. You have to give a lot of credit to the Montreal penalty killing. I thought that Colorado had a few opportunities to really sort of solidify some opportunities for themselves, but they came out big again, and that sort of that energizes you when you kill penalties and you do it successfully over an extended period of time. You start to have faith in each other's play, and that propels the rest of your game. So a great game on the road, definitely.
yeah. And yeah, coach, I think you're right, right? Like a lot of people would look at look at that result and be okay, well, yeah, like Colorado just, mailed it in or whatever. But and sometimes, you can look at that objectively in a game and say, okay, like yes, Montreal won this game against a better team, but like let's say for example against Seattle, right? Like yes, they scored 4 goals in the first period, but objectively you can look at that game and say, okay, if Grubauer's not in net, maybe that's not the same result, right? Or sometimes you can see that a team just doesn't have its legs or whatever. But last night, I didn't get that sense at all from the Avalanche. I think the Avalanche played a really good game. They were on top of it. They were moving the puck. They were zipping things around. Maybe they weren't as physical, maybe as you would like, and they didn't. They certainly didn't put guys in front of Montembeault as much as they're going to need to in the playoffs. Like they're going to need to have more people in the crease and play kind of simpler hockey, I think, in the playoffs. But it's not like they mailed it in. Like Montreal earned that win. Colorado was there. You
Fair
have a
and
lot of
square.
people, yeah, fair and square. And what last thing is, I think it's the last 5 games, Montreal's always faced the number 2 goalie. So that's another thing that people will say to discredit, kind of any results that Montreal is getting. But like that's part of the game, guys. Like people are going to play their number 2 goalies, right? It doesn't mean that it's not worth 2 points, right? So you have to give them
Awesome.
their credit.
Indeed.
All right, let's move on for the headline of Mr. Enortap. And Mr. Enortap said the future is now.
And again, before I get crucified here again, just wanted to preempt and say, by future, I'm not saying that they're going to win the cup, but we're definitely building in the right direction. We're developing properly. We're progressing, I would say, at a slightly accelerated rate from what a traditional rebuilding team usually takes. And all you have to do is look at certain teams like Chicago and San Jose and see what a big mountain they have ahead of them still. Even though Chicago just received last year a gift in Connor Bedard, which will help them drastically down the road. But to me, the Habs have definitely shown areas of great improvement this whole year. We talked about this a few times on different shows. Some are tangible things that you can see right away, and others are not. If I had to look at it and sort of summarize it, I would say guys like Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Gouli have really been the standouts for me, and who have benefited the most from their development and the work that they've put in. And you know what, guys? In the end, it's all about patience. Is faith, trust in the whole rebuilding process that starts with the right management, as we have up at the top there with Gorton and Hughes. That they're the ones that are responsible, obviously, for drafting, building, making proper trades, picking up free agents when the time is right, and just overall implementing the proper infrastructure, the blueprint to sort of enable that growth and development within the team and within specific players as well. And then, of course, this piggybacks off of what Marko was saying earlier. You have to have, I think, the right coach. And I know some people maybe have been critical because of his lack of experience, but you know what? I think he was the perfect complement to facilitate this kind of a rebuild. And he's an individual who thinks outside of the box, and he brings a certain level of competitiveness and instructional ability, especially when he's handling a lot of the younger players and that require it the most. And he knows he knows sometimes who to kick in the butt, and he knows who he should be given more patience to, and sort of teaching in a slightly different fashion. To me, that's a truer definition of what a teacher should be here. Um, you know, and I think it's deep rooted for him. Like, it comes from the fact that nothing came easy for him as well. He's had to fight and overcome obstacles in his own career, and he's met them all with success in terms of the way he's approached them and the way he's overcome certain things that have come his way. Um, Last but not least, I think is the players themselves that are brought into the fold. Having talent, even though we don't have those elite players yet, but having talent is not always enough, or it's not the only prerequisite. Like, you need that special kind of character on the team, that uh, where they work well together. You sort of They sort of bring out the best in each other. There's challenge, like especially on defense. If you consider the fact that on a night to night basis, we're sitting, a defenseman that could be going out there and not really hurting you, and they're alternating with that. It does add to the fact that they push each other. And then finally, you got to sprinkle a little bit of luck, I think, in the whole process, because that's something that's outside the control of anybody. We talked about injuries in the past. We talked about, making draft picks that are the right ones, especially in the first round and in the top 10. You can't really afford to strike out on one of those. And based on that, that's where I see that the future is not only optimistic, but it's also now, because we've seen at the NHL level. I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much, but it's obviously the players that we mentioned earlier that are on the team and have shown some great growth. When we look at the AHL, obviously guys like Logan Mailou and we saw Roy and Gignac have come up and shown that they can offer, and Dobes, who's really come around the second half of the season for Laval. So there's promise there. If you look at the European prospects, guys like Kapanen and Eriksson and Volikin, the goalie that they picked up from last year, and of course the North American prospects like Owen Beck. I Again, I'm very bullish on him. I think if you don't have high expectations in terms of offensive contributions, he's going to be a solid role player, and he's going to fill the shoes of many aspects, including covering some key players on opposing teams that can hurt you on any given night. So overall, I think that the future is now. I think in an opportunity again, if all those elements come together perfectly, they're in an opportunity that they probably won't make it, but they could challenge for a playoff spot next year. But I would say the year after and moving forwards, I think they'll be in that position where they will be in a playoff spot. What do you think, Coach Marko?
Yeah, well, listen, like I think if you're reading the tea leaves and watching what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon have been saying over the last month or two, reading their interviews and whatever, you can see, like you can see that a lot of the questions that we've been talking about, they're thinking the same thing, and it looks to me like they're leaning in that direction, Intertap, that they're looking at, again, we've established that this year already, unfortunately, it was in a way a lost opportunity because Kirby Doc gets injured 4 periods into the season. That robs the management team from the ability to really, really, really evaluate to their best ability what Montreal has right now. And then Newhook got injured and everything else, right? So, but listen, guys, like anything else in life, plans change, right? And you have to kind of evolve and roll with the punches as things happen, right? So, based on kind of what I'm hearing, from these interviews, it does sound like that they're going to really seriously look at opportunities to improve the team this summer. And the way that I agree with your headline, Intertap. I'd say maybe the future is this summer, maybe not now, but there's, I think it's going to be an exciting summer. Here's kind of a good example of how I would kind of think that the management team is kind of looking at it. At the trade deadline, when teams, they're kind of maybe deciding whether they should be a buyer or not. And often what you hear is, the GM thinking about, well, has the team given me a reason to reward them, right? Like, have they played well enough this year for me to go out and expend assets to add, right? So often, like anything else, the management team is looking for signals from their team to understand, okay, so based on how the team is performing, not necessarily wins and losses, right? But how are they adapting to the systems? How are the players evolving? How are they gelling as a team? Like, how are they absorbing the styles of play that we want to use and all that, right? So to me, like, just as a fan, I'm seeing signals that the team is evolving and buying into the right way to play and things like that, whether it's individual player progress or overall system play, right? So to me, if you use that analogy of a GM at the trade deadline, and he wants to reward his team for playing well this season by going out and adding someone to make them even better and have a chance at being successful. So I kind of view it that way, right? Like, if you're Kent Hughes and you're Jeff Gordon and you're watching how St. Louis is leading this team, even though it's not necessarily resulting in wins and losses right now because of various factors, right? Like mostly injuries up front and maybe a lack of depth. You're seeing those signals. You're getting signals from your team that they do deserve for you to do that. And then you add the whole other layer on top of that, coach and Enortap, about you're just at that stage, like I've been saying over and over and over, right? Like, you've collected your assets. Yes,
Yeah.
like there's only so many assets that you can collect, right? So of course you can, we know that they need a little bit more elite talent up front, right? But in terms of like overall depth for kind of role players and things like that, and especially we know their depth on defense. It's time to, and then with the draft picks that they have over the next 2 years, and listen, everybody knows what assets Montreal Canadiens have, right? So if you combine where they are with their assets, you combine the fact that the management team is seeing very, very positive signals from how the team is behaving. I would be shocked if they really are they going to go and sign Steve Stamkos? No, I don't. I don't think they're going to go sign like a 31 or 32-year-old guy to like a 7-year contract or something. I don't think that would be the right move either, unless it's Marchessault. We talked about Marchessault a lot, and maybe it's like a 2-year deal. I kind of like that move, right? But I think they're going to be
Yeah.
careful. But I think so. For me, Enortap, I agree. The future is this summer. This summer,
Yeah.
I'm going to be very excited at the
Yeah,
draft.
that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty exciting. All right, Coach, give it to us. I know you're gonna tell us that we're jumping the gun. That's we're in for another 18 years of rebuild. But let's go. Let's hear what you got to say.
Are you sit, Marco, right now? Are you sit?
I'm sitting.
Got
No,
two
but
of
are
these,
you
but I think okay,
comfortably sit? Are you a chair right now?
Let me
comfortable.
not
Yeah,
choke on my.
And your dog
okay.
right now is listening right now?
Yeah, he's in the other room, but I'm sure he can hear you. Yeah, he likes your voice, by the way.
Here we
He
go.
very soothes my voice.
I'm going
Yeah.
maybe surprise you. Martin Saint-Louis motivate can use.
Oh, ah, Coach is turning. Very nice, very nice.
So
Great
my
That's
point
good.
segue.
That's
behind that is a little
I
bit,
like it.
I adjust what you do at lines and I go that direction also. And the reason behind that is because I think, and I was going to ask you this question before I do my inline, but it will come at the same time. Um, do you feel or do you think, what you just said, Marco, Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon and Martin St. Louis and the staff sit together and they project, right? It's hockey is about projection. You think this player could become that players and you draft a player who maybe become that players, everything like that. So projection is the plan of the future for them, right? They think they maybe in that year it will be what they expect in that year. Do you think they are a little bit more earlier on their temp on their
Yeah.
plan right now, or do you think they
Yeah.
are exactly what they are?
Well, we've
No,
heard Gordon say it, Coach. Like Gordon has said it directly that I think he was surprised how many good assets there were already here when he got here. I think he talks over and over about when you really watch Nick Suzuki as an outsider. Okay, Nick Suzuki is good, but then when you watch him game after game after game, you gain a different appreciation for what he brings, right? And then Caden Gooley and oh, wait a minute, we have a goalie now, Montembeault, and so and then when you add the moves, like Doc again, that's the big question mark, right? And that we know in the chat, everybody's like, don't even
new.
some people in the chat are like, don't even count Doc. Like you can't even. But guys, he's there, right? He's a very very important piece, right? So I agree 100%, Coach. Like I think they think that they're ready to take the next step here.
Perfect.
Sure.
So
Yeah, they.
the reason behind that, I want to ask this question, Marco, and your answer is exactly what I was thinking, is because Martin Saint Louis pushed the process quicker. And when I said that, he developed players quicker and the way they play, they perform better at what we expect. I'm talking about the individual players. After that, I'm talking about the team together. And I think if we put this together, that's make now to Ken Hughes look and say, wait a minute, can we come back another year this way and just hold our asset one more year and do anything during the summer and wait and 2025? And I think for me, the Martin Saint Louis excite the fans. They are excite the players right now, and they also excite a lot of excitement for the management. So wait a minute, I think we have to go a little bit now. We need to find some help to helping Martin Saint Louis next year on the roster for 2024, 2025. And that's what the reason I said that. Martin Saint Louis motivate can use to act quicker on the plan. And you're right, you cannot push to get a player for 8 years, but maybe make something they was not expect to do right now and a couple of weeks ago or 2 months ago. Listen, you just mentioned a lot of players become better. And look, Joel Armia. This is he's a player right now, like at the October. Everybody, every team, every fan want him to get out the team sooner and quicker. They send him back in Laval. He come back, and then he return. Then he come back better and more with consistency. And you can go with many players on the team. The system of the play is a little bit better on different area of the game. It's not perfect. We're going to have a roller coaster. We're going to go drop down, but the plan where the player buy it and they follow exactly what they try to become as a team. I think this is the reason it's really because of Martin St. Louis and the staff around. And yes, always people work behind the Saint Marco and all that, right? The Adam Nicolas, the Scott Pellerin, we have Francis Bouillon, Paul Barron is there, Eric Raymond behind that, and the schooling and the coaching staff. Listen, I'm not talking about the Stanley Cup winner. I'm not talking about a playoff team.
No.
But at the end of the day, like you just both of you said, right? That he is the leader of that team, but he make that team better. And for me, he might now his push can use to do something a little bit quicker at what he would expect to do. Maybe 10 months, 2 months, 12 months later. Now he have to do it a little bit more. And this summer, it could be something. It could happen. Now, I don't know exactly. I'm not saying he have to do this, but I think he need to help Martin St. Louis to have a better roster for the season 2024 and 2025 next year in October. And it could be from intern Marco. If would maybe some player would step up better as a rookie or 1 year. And I said Rebecca, Mayu, whatever it is. But I think Montreal, I think Kenny is going to bring those kind of. It would fix that kind of situation for Martin St. Louis and also Marco and Enortap for the players, right? If Marco, you follow very well what Nick Ski said, we are starting to be tired at the traded line to let the best player leave the team. We want to be sure next year this is not going to happening anymore. And this is the way to try to do the transition during the rebuilding to add more asset with from via trade or UFA, whatever it is, to helping Martin St. Louis. And next year, we don't have to trade another players not going to help in the Montreal Canadiens at long term. So that was my headline on that one. So one of you can jump in on that.
Yeah, I would say, Coach, a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a lot of transparency between the coaches and the general managers and the scouts and everybody else involved in the developmental process. I think that that's what's integral, so that they're always working towards the same goals. Like, yes, I agree that Martin St. Louis possibly could motivate Hughes to sort of act without a doubt. But I would even turn it around a bit and say, Hughes has been very shrewd in terms of how he's acquired certain assets, and he knows what will fit in terms of talent and also character that he puts on this team, so that that player not only will self improve, but will also play well under Martin St. Louis and get along with him and the rest of the team. So I think it's almost like a synergy that they create that benefits both parties, and that's what's making it successful, at least to date. What do you think, Marco?
Well, so good point, Enortap. Like, Coach, you have to for sure. You have to give Saint Louis. He's the leader of the team, right? So for sure he is an integral part of making the team progress to the point where the management feels like they would need to move faster than they could. But you have to give credit to the players too, right? Because you need two to tango, right? Like, and what we're seeing are dedicated players. Like, you brought it up before, Suzuki, working with the analytics guys to be in a better position, and like, so that kind of dedication. Caulfield, sacrificing goals so that he can be a better 200-foot player. Slavkovsky being like Godzilla sponge, like, just desperately trying to get better and wants to get better. Like Armia, kind of being on humble enough to understand that he needs help with his psychological stuff. So that, like, you can go on and on and on, right? In order for, like, yes, it all comes in. We've had headlines in the past where Martin St. Louis, the salesman, right? Like, and that's what being a coach is selling your ideas to a bunch of guys and having them buy in. But you also need guys that are open and willing to kind of receive those ideas and then act on them, right? So equal for me, it's equal part between the leadership of St. Louis and then the players buying in and getting better at the things that they want them to do. Last thing I'll say about this is, you can't maybe discount some of the other examples in the NHL that not maybe Jeff Gordon and Ken Hughes are looking at, but maybe Jeff Molson is looking at and wondering, maybe we can be a little like if you look at the Philadelphia Flyers guys and you look at their lineup and what they were supposed to be this year, you know, you can get a team in the playoffs even with a roster that's maybe not as robust as some others if the whole team is buying into a concept and playing the right way, right? So yes, there's internal signals like the team is like we just talked about. Saint Louis is forcing the hand, and the players are maybe forcing the hand of the management team to move this summer and make the team better. But we're seeing examples in the NHL, maybe that the ownership of the team is looking at and saying, "Hey guys, like we can still like continue to collect assets, but we can actually perform well too. Like if we have a team work in the same direction, right? Just another thing to consider too."
Yeah, the only difference, Coach and Marco, I would say, when you're looking at Philadelphia, and again, not to take anything away from them because I think that they've come a long way, but perhaps they're playing a little bit above their head. I know that they've had some problems this year, not just with injuries, but of course losing your number one goaltender is a huge detriment. Even though Harrison has come in and performed admirably, but if you look at the two teams and the approach, and I'm talking about Philadelphia versus Montreal, I almost see a little bit more of a piece with the way the Montreal approach has been. Like I'm expecting a regression coming out of Philadelphia, whereas with Montreal, I'm expecting further growth based on the way it's been put together. And I mean, only time will tell. We saw it this year with New Jersey. They had a great rush last year, and then this year they've fallen back a little bit. Again, not that they're a bad team. I think they're still very talented team. But that adjustment, that internal adjustment, had to happen at some point, and that's the only
This
thing I
is
would add.
this is what I would say to that though, Enortap. Like the expression like the ends justifies the means, right? So
Hmm?
certainly like, and by the way, Tortorella and Saint Louis, they're actually pretty close, and John Tortorella is probably the coach that's influenced Martin Saint Louis the most, right? Out of all the coaches that he's had, and I think they talk a lot over the summer. So Tortorella has of course, he makes really kind of passionate decisions and everything else, but for the most part, if you talk to players that have played for him after, they do feel like he's actually kind of even still a coach. I know it's going to sound weird to say, but he's still kind of a player's coach in the sense where he's really wants the player to get better. Right now, his methods you could definitely debate. Right, so
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not saying that. So I'm not saying that Saint Louis is going to take this. Like, I'm not saying that Montreal should have Saint Louis adopt the same tactics in terms of how he, treats his players and everything else. Like, I think we all know Martin Saint Louis' style is different and probably healthier in the long run. I'm seeing people in the chat here saying like, okay, it's kind of like whipping dogs, right? Like they might run fast for about an hour, but then they'll be exhausted and go to sleep, right? So I get it, right? So the means might be different for Martin Saint Louis. But what my point is that good coaching and players buying into a system can bring you further and get you results a little faster. Just like talent is only a portion of the equation, right?
Yeah,
Teams that may not
absolutely.
have talent, like look at Nashville is another great example. Like you can't say Andrew Brunette is a Nazi Tortorella guy that's like whipping his guys into a frenzy, right? Like Andrew Brunette has a really good reputation, but Nashville, did anybody look at their lineup this year and see kind of what they're doing either? So all I'm saying is that Habs management and maybe Habs ownership is looking at some results around the league, saying, okay, listen, like we've finished bottom five or bottom 10 now for a couple years. We want to do things the right way, but I think we have enough assets. Let's take the next step here. We're seeing really good signals from the team that they're buying in, so let's repay them with a little bit of help.
Yeah. Um, for me, it's like everything. Like the Flowers is they don't have the same roster like Montreal Canadiens. and that was my only difference between the Flyers and Montreal Canadiens right now. They still have their good player or the veterans players play on the top six. Example, Montreal Canadiens, they don't have their best player for Montreal. They are the youngest players, and that's the difference between the Flyers where they are and what they are Montreal Canadiens. We look about Couturier, Konechny, talk about Atkinson, talk about Farabi, Lawton.
Couturier and Atkinson have had terrible seasons. Like he's benching the guy, right? Like really, like Konechny is what, like 26 years old. Like he's not that old, right?
But but those players, they are experienced in NHL, right? They are the player been there for many years in NHL. They are their best. Us, our best are 22, 23, 24 years old. So we're not at the same level like the Flyers at the end of the
It's a
day.
younger team.
The Flyers will have
Younger
to
team.
decide what they have to do. They have to, bring those people out of the lineup to restart the rebuild. Or this is the kind of team I think is the kind of team Marko can retool quicker and turn flip over if they want to do that because they have the material inside that they can keep Farabi, they can keep Konechny around, and I know Atkinson and 34 years old could she have a back problem, right? But at the end of the day, I think the Flyers are a little bit different as compared to Montreal Canadiens, but
Uh,
they will have to figure out this.
agree to disagree on that one, Coach. Like I think again, like if whether it's Farabee or Frost or even Konechny, right? Like okay, so maybe he's what, like a year or two older than Nick Suzuki. Like he's not old. Like he's 26, so he's still kind of a young veteran in the NHL, right? So
The
I get
only
it. Like
the only
go
thing,
ahead.
Marco, that I would add to that is the fact that I think Philadelphia, over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, really refused to believe that they needed to re-enter like a rebuilding or retooling, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
But I think they needed to rebuild, and they're finally coming to that realization as soon as they changed management there, and they realized that. And so when I look at it from maybe I'll throw it at you as well. When you look at it from a long-term perspective, I think Montreal is a little bit better suited for the consistency aspect than Philadelphia will. I could see Philadelphia fluctuating up and down.
I don't know, Enortap, because ultimately I would say that Philadelphia is almost having their cake and eating it too, right? Because they did move out a lot of assets, and they collected some first round picks, and they've collected some assets,
Yeah,
and they'll probably
without a doubt.
continue to do. But they're also making the playoffs, or very close to making the
Well,
playoffs.
I,
So
I still have my
that's what.
reservations, but
Yeah, well, like listen, like either way, like even if, so let's say they lose out like in the last week of the season, then the young players like the Morgan Frosts and the Farabees and like those guys don't have a lot of playoff experience, right? So York, like all those guys, they've only had one. I think in the bubble is the only year that they made the playoffs. So Konechny's I think, only played maybe 8 playoff games in his career, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is invaluable experience for that team. So I'm just saying, like after Vegas won the cup last year, and we were saying Vegas just proved that there's more than one way to build a winner. Everybody said the only way you can build a winner is through the draft and develop, right? Well, Vegas, they have their own
through
unique
the
style of doing it.
LTIR.
Which is really just doing the PlayStation Mark Bergevin type thing, where it's impossible to do big trades and sign free agents. Well, Vegas proved like you can do it a different way. Well, Philadelphia, are they in the process of proving that you can do a rebuild and still make the playoffs or be very close to making the playoffs? Because correct me if I'm wrong, like they still moved out a lot of assets this year, and they've collected a lot of futures as they're doing it, right? So again, do I
Yeah,
like the way Montreal done it here? But like Montreal will have better assets than Philadelphia has here because they've been doing it for 2 years, finishing in the bottom 10.
right.
But what I'm saying is that I don't think it will hurt Montreal's long-term sustainability. And I think that's what you're talking about, Intertap, right? Like, and that's what we want for Montreal
It
is we
is.
don't want
It is.
a quick repatch. We want them to be a perennial contender that's always going to be contending, for a long time, right? So, all I'm saying is that, and to dovetail off Coach's headline there, is that I'm not just Montreal ownership, but I'm wondering if other ownership groups that have been sold on rebuilds, I would be surprised to look at Philadelphia and be like, okay, they sold assets, got futures, and still made the playoffs. Because the guys, let's not forget, right? Playoffs is money, is straight
Money.
up money for the owners, right? So you can't underestimate the importance that owners will put into, they're going to be patient, but they want to make the playoffs.
And the Devil are a great example about sometime one or two move or a miscalculation of the projection could backwards your plan go forward. And
Yeah,
yet,
yeah,
many reasons. I think last season, I think they will play better what they was supposed to play, right? And many of them play maybe one of their best career hockey in NHL as a group together. Uh, that pushed Tom Fitzgerald to make some trade at the traded line, Marko, to get Timo Meyer example. I think if you go back to October before that year, I don't think he was thinking at the traded line to get Timo Meyer, right? And look this year, injuries, the fact they let go a couple, one or two players, focus with no goaltender, then to get only on Kevin Baugh, Luke Hughes, and Simon Nemec as the defenseman over Rand Graves. They let go as Ziverson. I know he's a third parent, but still,
yeah, yeah,
12
yeah,
years
yeah, yeah,
experience in NHL, right? Put this all
yeah.
together. That regrets the team 1 year. That's not said they will not going to be good next year, but it's not a perfect plan
No,
to go all
no.
the way to the make the playoff or to stay in the playoff and to perform year after year. And this is where Montreal Canadiens need to figure out something. And with no player like Connor Bedard, McDavid, Matthews, those kind of players like making an example, Montreal Canadiens is have to maximize everything. They make some decision to get the best of that, because if they make one or two mistakes during that term or that time,
It's a
uh,
big detriment. Yeah.
that will make them a little bit go backwards, everything like that. And that's reflect a little bit me. Can Montreal, because we're going to go there the next couple of weeks, right? At the NHL draft. Same thing happening last year. Ray Barker versus Mitch Cobb. This year is going to be Dimitrov versus Langstrom, or Dimitrov versus Parek, example. I just gave you a name right there, but it's going to be
Yeah, yeah.
Dimitrov. Can Montreal Canadiens hold a couple of years without Dimitrov and wait for him to play or not? This is because during those time, the 4 or 5 years without Dimitrov, you pick up players,
Not
you
going
don't
to be
use.
4 years, coach. It's not going to be 4 years.
Oh
Like
yeah,
I think it's more like
definitely,
2 or 3.
definitely, definitely, definitely.
I'm not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
He's going to sign a new contract. Look what's going to happen. He playing in MHL right now. He does not play in KHL, right? He's going to be the
Yeah.
future of the KHL. He's going to be the big star in that league, like Mitch Cobb. And both of them play together at the same team.
But does he want that though? Does
And
he
what
want that?
said Marco a couple of minutes ago, let's go with that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Who run the
I get
league
it.
over there? Who has the best team over there? That's the CSKA. So the CSKA would tell the players, you can go in NHL. There's not a player say, hey, I want to go. If you look about their best players play at that league, right? Like Kaprizov, he have to wait until 24 years old, Marco, to come in NHL. 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me,
Whole
I don't
whole
see
other
that
topic.
at least.
Yeah,
If I can be wrong, I would say 3 years. If I'm right, it's approximately 4, 5, 6 years.
yeah. I would bet
Well,
3 years, but yeah. But on
yeah.
your coach, like I'm 100% with you, right? Like one, and there's lots of examples. New Jersey is a great example. Dorian in Ottawa this summer, and the different decisions he's made with goaltending is another great example. Um, and Montreal, I hate to bring this up because it's kind of like opening up an old wound, right? But um, you remember, like, okay, here's it, guys. As Habs fans, it's kind of like having a family discussion. Okay, we haven't talked about this openly. Okay, and it's going to hurt a little bit. But I think if you ask most Habs fans, what is like the era or the period of time that set the Montreal Canadiens the furthest back in say in the last 25 years, most Habs fans will say the Régent Houle trade, Patrick Roy, completely, really not doing a good job with that trade, not getting a good return for Patrick Roy. That set Montreal back for many, many years, right? I think
and how
we
it
all
was
could,
handled.
yeah, and how it was handled, right? That set the team back for a long time. I would say since that, the summer that Marc Bergevin had before he left would fall number 2 on that list, right? Because what happened that summer, coach, and you can't
The
blame just Marc
signings.
Bergevin. Yeah, and you can't just blame Marc Bergevin, right? Because you can kind of blame Jeff Molson too, right? Because he had a lame duck GM, didn't make a decision on whether he was going to sign him, whether he was going to move on from him. And Jeff Molson let him, kind of retool the team, sign all these players, Gallagher, Armia. They went out, got Anderson. Then there's the whole Kakanyemi thing where,
And there were
okay, so
and there were no checks and balances along the way to
no,
somebody that could sort of halt him as
yeah.
as he was
And,
making
and,
these decisions.
and nobody in ownership knew that this guy was going to be there next year. Why are they letting him do all these things? So again, so to your point, coach, like one summer of decisions by GM can set a team back for a long, long time. Just
Yeah,
imagine where Montreal would
maybe I
be,
said
right? Like,
short time, but you're absolutely right about that.
yeah,
You said,
Yeah,
and then you can have another year where you nail it. If you look about
yeah,
the Dallas Star, the year draft 2018, I believe, when they get Eskinen,
yeah,
Jason
yeah, yeah,
Robinson, right? And I
yeah.
missed one. Is it Jake Ottinger? I
Auden,
think it is.
Auden, all in the same
Ottinger.
draft.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's
Yeah,
number 4, 26, and 42, I believe, for Robinson on that area. So you never know, right? And but for me, to answer to Gary in the chat, he said you don't maybe win the Stanley Cup with Matthews, McDavid, McKinnon. It was not the point of winning the Stanley Cup. One of my point is like when you don't have those kind of players, if you miss one player, like if example you draft a player this year and that player never played in NHL, right? But you still have McKinnon on your team, you still hanging there and a long term, right? But
yeah,
without McKinnon and you miss that pick this year, you drop again and you go backwards, you not go forward. So the mistake has been bigger if they miss the players they're going to draft this season. By the way, my question of the day is about what do you do at the 5th overall pick, 6th overall, 7th overall pick, Montreal? Do you draft a player, a forward, a defenseman, or do you trade that pick? Because it's starting to have a rumor and around the Montreal Canadiens, create by Matches Brunet today for that one over there, where he said, well, let me check about this. I don't know where I put this news. Cole Caulfield plus their first round pick this year for Celebrini.
Hmm. That's interesting. Depends what that first is, right? Is it sixth, seventh, eighth?
yeah.
Okay,
Coach.
so before you
Yeah,
you answer Marco and Enortap, think about this. Montreal select 5, 6, 7, like 99% right now. They're
Yeah,
going to be
yeah, yeah.
5, 6, 7, right? So we talk about let's put Dimitrov out, right? All right, we're still talking about maybe a Lindstrom or maybe a
Yeah.
defenseman and the range of Dickinson, right? And maybe Jan Remchuk. And again, I'm just talking about player or
yeah,
Parent
yeah,
and a
yeah.
forward like Catton, example. or
Yeah.
Eisenman, whatever.
Or Eisenman. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
this is the Matthias Brunet today. So what do you think about this?
Well, I'll let you go first, Enortap. You go ahead.
I I mean, you're looking at it, and what you're balancing here is: do you want that elite player, or do you want that balanced team? I mean, because with their first pick, it's not like they're going to get a bad player out of this. Obviously, they're going to get a solid forward, because I do believe that some defensemen are going to go prior to some forwards. That if the defensemen were not strong this year, I think they would have gone higher up in the order. So you're sort of taken away from two positions. One is a goal scorer. The other one is possibly a center that you're going to pick up, or another winger, to get that elite player. Um, I, I mean, I'm almost leaning towards Celebrini, but they're going to have to be very shrewd in terms of who and how they pick after that, to sort of fill in, not to the same level, but to fill in the gaps that this would create.
So let's say this is Chicago, right? So we're assuming it's going to be Chicago that would be that would have the
Buffalo.
first overall pick, right? And again, and they're open to trading the first overall pick for Caulfield and your first. Okay, let's assume that's the scenario. To me, coach, you do it all day. You have to do it. You have to pull the trigger on this trade, because wingers, like, we love Cole Caulfield, right? But wingers are interchangeable for the most part. Not
Yeah.
to be mean, right? Some wingers are harder to find. Like, that's why Slavkovsky got drafted first overall, not because he's maybe going to be the highest scoring player in that draft. It's because he's going to be a point producing guy, but he's also Slavkovsky. He's a monster, right? Like, he's big, he's strong, he's very unique, right? But like a sniper is not as, yes, scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in the NHL, right? But you can find scoring on the wing
You can find
through free
wingers.
agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, if you're able to get, because all of a sudden, like, okay, Enortap, you're saying that, okay, you're losing, a winger, but in a way, if you're adding Celebrini, then all of a sudden now that means you can move Doc to the wing, right? So you're
Or
losing
or you probably have the best center trio in the league, right? It was Suzuki and
maybe, but
Doc and
I don't think you'd want to.
Celebrini.
I don't think you want to play Doc on the third line. Like,
No,
I,
no, no.
yeah, yeah.
You'd be
So
better off on the wing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I agree with
but
that.
like, then, like, then, okay, so assuming they did something like that, now you're going around, and you can, you're really strong down the middle. You still have some wingers that are coming up in the organization, and then you can start talking about adding a Marchessault, or kind of like those other wingers that are maybe a little bit more interchangeable.
Yeah,
I would for sure do it. I don't think Chicago would do that,
I would
but
agree.
I would do it if I was Montreal. Coach, would you pull
It's
the trigger on that?
it's one of those situations, Coach, that you were saying before. All of a sudden, if something, an opportunity like this happens, it changes your plans immediately. As a GM, you have to now take a different strategy in terms of how to rebuild this thing. But it's a great situation to be in. I think if you can get a Celebrini, you go for it.
All right. So it looked like from everybody and you guys that trade is too easy for Montreal Canadiens. So Chicago
Yeah,
said, "All right, I like it, but I need more."
yeah,
All right. No, it makes sense, right, Marco? Because
Yeah,
after
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like we,
Sure.
So who, what players, what they could add, or what or Chicago would request to the Montreal Canadiens to add a 3-for-1 for City Brini.
A
yeah. So
defenseman. They would want
yeah,
a defenseman.
well, I don't know if they would want one, but I think if you're Montreal, then you're giving it, like, those are two really important pieces, right? Like a 5th to 7th overall pick, and then a former 15th overall that has potential 40 goal potential in the NHL, right? Those are two big pieces, but Celebrini is he's not generational, but I think that most people would agree that he's going to be an elite center in the NHL. So that's worth a lot. So if you're Montreal, you're probably open to adding something else, but maybe not a blue chip, like whether it's like a like a Harris, maybe
Harris. Yeah.
like a Machar, like a maybe even Owen Beck. Like if you're getting a center, would you be willing to throw in Owen Beck in there? I don't know. So one of those left-handed defensemen for sure. I think I would still do it. Like as long as it's not like a blue chip prospect. Not that we have a ton of blue chip prospects, right? But I wouldn't be doing Hudson or
Well,
Mayu or Reinbacher or Roy or anybody like that. But that second tier of prospects that we have, which to me is Massar. I still put Beck in there, like because he's a role player. He's not going to be a top six guy. He's going to be a very good NHL player, but he's not going to be a top six guy. So he's still in that second tier of prospect. So I would include a second tier prospect and
All
hope that
right.
gets it done.
Um, a lot of people said no, it's like crazy trade everything like that. But I'm going to ask the people in the chat that you both of you give me your answer to my question. What kind of player Celebrini is going to be? A Connor Bedard, a McDavid, a McKinnon, a Kucherov, or is going to be more like a
Jonathan Taves. Jonathan Taves.
mm, I'm not sure.
But more.
is it a
I
guy
think
going
he
to
has.
get 100 points per year, or is it a guy going to be
Yes.
more like same level like Jack Hughes? Or I don't want to put Elias Peterson. I think Peterson is better. I think Peterson is the next.
Well,
It's another tier or above, I believe. But where do you
well,
see Celebrini and the mix of that? Because for the chat, they believe right now Celebrini is the next McDavid. Because everybody said, no, no,
No,
no. Chicago will never trade Celebrini.
no. I don't think
no.
he's not generational coach. Like I would even put Hughes above him in terms of offensive production, but he's a much more complete player, right? To me, he reminds me of kind of like again a more like probably a better skating Jonathan Taves. Maybe his like point production is slightly above point per game, right? Like maybe like 90 points a year, but like just like amazing competitor, like will play the game like with him and Suzuki. Like I would be I think that would be very powerful. Like those would be two amazing two-way centers that Montreal would have, right? Like at any time of the game, you could have two very defensively responsible centers that can produce points. So I don't know. You guys think he's more than a two-way guy? Like,
He definitely is a two-way player.
yeah,
And I wouldn't necessarily put him at the level of McDavid or even Bedard for that matter. But I don't think he's too far off. I do believe he can be a, a a player that will bring you forward. Like definitely an elite player, and we heard that the other night, even from Michael, who's seen him play quite a bit. If I had to compare him, I'd probably put him more in line with a a bigger version of a Brandon Point, and I think he can produce at that level as well.
I
hmm,
think the style is not the same, but I think the number of the outcome, Marco, it could be
Yes,
similar. Does it make sense?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's the
yeah.
kind of yes, I feel that way, but not the
How
style
about,
of players.
how about
Not the
Sebastian
style.
Aho? How about Sebastian Aho?
But Sebastian hasn't really hit high numbers. I mean, he's a very good superstar, but what's his best production? Has he ever hit 82 or higher?
Yeah. He's not a 100 point guy, but I think he's been more than a point per game for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Maybe, yeah, yeah.
different.
yeah.
I think I always another good example about that one over there. Um, no, I'm not sure he's going to be the same kind of second players.
Style.
like
Yeah, yeah.
two-way
But
tone.
either way, like that, guys, you're adding an elite center, um, and then that gives you more flexibility for everybody in the chat that's been, begging for a backup plan for Doc in case he's not healthy. Like that, that's an amazing opportunity to make that happen. And then you still have Doc, so that you're able to play him on the wing, or you play him on the line with Celebrini, and then you have two centers on one line, or we know that Doc and Suzuki works really well. We know that Doc and Slavkovsky works pretty well too from the limited short time. We're spending a lot of time on this fantasy,
Would
guys. I'm getting a little too excited about it. I don't know if that's so. I don't know.
would
Let's
you
change the topic,
would you
coach,
even
because
would you even put Bergeron in that equation in terms of comparable?
yeah, like maybe not as like Bergeron was like like elite defensive forward, right? So
But
and
more importantly, a leader, Marco, like
yeah, yeah,
a true captain, like and that's what Celebrini strikes me as well.
yeah. He definitely has that potential for sure, right? So he's a very solid player. Like again, if you're asking my taste, like you guys know, I don't like teams that are top heavy, like the Oilers and the Leafs. Like if I was a GM in the NHL, I would much rather build a Carolina Hurricanes kind of team more than a Toronto Maple Leafs or Edmonton Oilers kind of team, right? The Avalanche might be a different story though, because those players are just so competitive, and like if you're for me, McKinnon is the best player, the best overall player in the NHL right now. That's my opinion. But overall, I like the model where you're building a more balanced team. So to me, having Celebrini and Suzuki, as your top two centers, you're really setting yourself up for long term success there, I think.
By the way,
But
I agree.
our
no problem.
is our 38 goal is higher number. 83 point is higher number. Now
Yeah,
he's on the pace to get 90 this year at 26 years
Yeah,
old. So he's
yeah.
not
he's
like a
at.
superstar, but he's a guy the way for that part over there. So I think so. He's
Isn't he
going to
at
be
70 this year, Coach?
he's
Isn't he
80
at
to
70
70.
this?
He still have 12 games to go, so he could maybe reach 90 this year.
Okay.
Mm.
But again, people laugh at this has never happened. But I'm in Chicago, and I'm getting Rebecca, Caulfield, and the first one pick fifth. I'm sitting at the table with Montreal.
Oh yeah, well yeah, yeah. But I don't. If I'm Montreal, I'm not sure I'm doing a number one Caulfield and Reinbacher.
Yeah,
That's a
of
little too
course,
big.
of course.
Yeah,
But it's you find uh, if I'm a team like Chicago or San Jose, where we take me a couple of years to get where I'm supposed to be, I was thinking a little bit now. Chicago said, you know what, we're not tracing Bernie because we are thinking he's going to be the next star in NHL. But I don't see that yet. I don't see that level yet. I
yeah.
know he's going to be
Okay.
better at Lafreniere, but it's a player I don't see right now to get that direction. But that time we tell us about this. This
Yeah,
was coming from Matches Brunet, guys. It was not coming from us. We just comments
yeah,
on
yeah.
what happening on that one over there. We have about 40 minutes to go. We have any question in the chat? I'm going to bring you some different question and everything happened. Montreal Canadiens, they don't have a lot of things happening today on the news. They traveling after the game last night. They have a day off. Then they play the Flyers tomorrow night. But I think we don't have a lot of news around the Montreal Canadiens. Before we go with Mario, maybe I would like to bring you that. It was a big question today, and Patrick he think Hudson never going to play with Montreal. So this coming from Danny Dubé. I didn't read or listening all Danny Dubé. I pick up on the social media left and right, but I didn't point as out that conversation. But it looked like Danny Dubé is very concerned about Lane Hudson, the negotiation, everything like that. Any comments you want to add? I know it's going to be a little bit spicy right now, but I would like to hear from each one of you.
Yeah. We had this similar conversation a couple of years ago when Harris was in this position, right? And we thought at that point he wasn't going to sign with Montreal either. As a matter of fact, there was more evidence going the opposite way that he wasn't going to sign. But of course, with Hughes, knowing the individual and having really sort of bought having him buy into what was being built here in Montreal, it became a no brainer. For me, I think this is just noise right now. I can't see them not signing him.
So let's be clear, right? So if Hudson doesn't sign this summer, Montreal still has one more year to sign him, right? So it's not
Correct.
similar to
Yeah.
the case
Yeah.
with Harris where it went down to the wire with Harris, right? Like if they didn't sign him, then he
Right.
was going to be a so just to be clear about that. But coach, like some of the interviews I've heard, I think Hudson, I've heard him give a couple of interviews like to different podcasts and stuff like that. And again, I'm not a mind reader, right? But when he was asked a question about whether he would like to, how appealing it would be to play another year with his brother, he didn't say no, and it wasn't like, I get it, like it's always a negotiation thing. Like you don't want to give away your position in a negotiation and give away your all your leverage and everything. But it's not inconceivable that he would want to stay there. Now, on the opposite end of that, like, it puts him a year behind in his earning potential and everything else, right? But
Yeah. It's
to
all about the
me,
money.
well, yeah, maybe for most guys, but Lane Hudson to me strikes me as a guy who is really kind of taking his career, seriously in the sense where he views this as a long term project, right? Like he's not just looking for. It's not like if you're Jordan Harris and you're not like okay, you're confident that you're going to make the NHL, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to have an NHL career if you're Jordan Harris or if you're Jaden Struble. You're a second round pick. You know, so you're going to take that opportunity to sign in the NHL. Now, Lane Hudson is also a second round pick. I get that, but I think everybody kind of recognizes that he's a special talent, right? And so if I'm Lane Hudson, yes, I'm motivated by okay, I can start making NHL money, right away, or start the clock ticking on my entry level contract. I get that, but I don't think
Hmm.
I don't know the guy, and but ultimately, he doesn't strike me like the kind of guy who is going to prioritize that over what he thinks is best for the long term development of his career. So similarly to what we've talked about in the past, when we were wondering if Caulfield would sign a bridge or would Caulfield sign an 8-year deal, what I said then and what I'll say now is it really depends what kind of advice he's getting from his family, from his entourage about what's best for him and his future, right? So I don't think anybody knows. I think everybody's excited to have him play some games in Montreal potentially this year. And, obviously, if they don't sign him this year, the anxiety level for a lot of Habs fans that really like Lane Hudson will start to rise even more because now you are getting to the stage where it's really coming down to the wire, and you could potentially lose him as a UFA. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that we don't mention. Like we talk all the time about the depth that Montreal has at D, guys, like if you're a guy who's got drafted by the Montreal Canadiens and you play defense and you look at all that depth, like if you're Enstrom right now who hasn't signed, are you like it's one thing, okay, you believe in yourself and you're wanting to compete for a position and all that, but if you're able to put yourself in a position where you have an easier path to the NHL, that's something to consider, right?
Yeah.
All right.
It seems to be a lot of negative talk there about Hudson.
So,
I don't know. I don't know. This guy to me is blue chip.
so to answer a couple of people in the chat, right? When you said option have a lot of option, he does not have a lot of option at the end of the day. He cannot request a ton of money. Like he cannot request a signing a bonus of X dollars. Um, it's not on paper, but if you look, I just checking 5 players in NHL come from NCAA, and I compared to Sakoski. Sakoski was a first overall pick in NHL. He got a $3.5 million signature, right? because he was the first overall pick. So I don't go back to Adam Fox. Adam Fox, 66 overall pick, right? That's the kind of player we talk about. Because he was draft 62 overall pick, he cannot see the Montreal Canadiens give me $2 million tomorrow for my contract.
No, no, no.
He
I
had
know that.
no leverage about that, right? So for him, it's not about the question about the money at the end of the day. He cannot send Montreal, I'm going to put this and I'm going to go that direction over there.
But that's not what we're saying, coach. Like the leverage that we're saying that he has is whether he signs or not. Like, so what I was saying is that it like the for people for a guy, if he doesn't sign his ELC now, it puts him a year behind in his overall earning potential of where of his ELC starting, so that he can get to the next level and make more money. This is what we're saying, right? So we
Yeah.
know there's the ELC, there's limitations to how much that's going to be. What we're saying is that because Enortap's saying, well, why would he leave? Why would he not like hit start on the timer for his ELC so that he can start earning that money and get there? What I'm saying is that yes, most players might think that way, and somebody who is not 100% confident that they will play, if there's no guarantee they'll play in the NHL, they'll probably sign that contract right away because why wouldn't you, right? It's an amazing opportunity. It's your dream your whole life. But with a player like
Yeah.
Hudson, who is a special player, and in my opinion, somebody that is thinking long term, what is the best thing for me to position myself to be have a successful long term career? I don't think he's going to prioritize signing his ELC 1 year faster just so that he can hit the start button. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think for him, what he was request, like he did not request that way, but Jordan Harris said, look, I don't want to sign go to Laval. I want to be sure I go to Montreal right away when I get my ALC. Ryan Hudson going the same way. I believe he's going to go that same. Patrick, he cannot request money. Patrick, he's a 62 overall pick. Like it's like you're going to
Can't do it.
ask Jonathan Marchessault to get $12 million, Patrick. It's not make sense, right? That's the same thing what happening with Lane Hudson. It's not going to give them $5 million because he had 2 good years in NCAA. So his leverage, he have no leverage. Other the fact he can request, hey, if I come in here, I want to stay in Montreal. Don't want to play in Laval. But at the end of the day, he he's limited. He's a 62 overall pick. He is not a first round pick at the end of the day. And I'm telling you right now, he's going to sign April 2nd with the Montreal Canadiens. It's going to be at the lineup with the Montreal Canadiens the next day. And now you're going to say, oh, coach, he was right again.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's all.
Agreed.
I, I I think that's all what everybody, I think for the most part, again, there might be the odd person that doesn't want that, but I think for most part, most Habs fans, that's what they want to see, right? But in truth, we just don't know, right? We don't know for sure what his intentions are, but I can see why some fans, or there's some reports out there that question it, because again, in some interviews, he's hinted at the fact that he wouldn't be against the idea of playing another year with his brother and all that, right? So I can understand why it's a point of discussion, but the truth is we just really don't know.
So I'm going to flip that question, Marco, in Arta. For him, only for him, for his development, for his to become a better hockey player, to play a third year in NCAA, play 40 game, 45 game, and it's not the same way like any other league professional or the same way play junior. There will be benefit for him to play an extra year with BU.
Well, I can think of a good argument, coach. Like, go ahead, Intertap. Let's go ahead.
No, I think he's shown everything he has to. I mean, just the fact that he's nominated 2 years in a row for the Hobie Baker Award, I think speaks volumes. He's probably pretty much crushed any records there, and this year I've seen quite an improvement. And some people are quoting his size and weight, and even that improved this year. Like he last I saw on Elite Prospects, he was marked down as 5'10" and 170. So that's a drastic improvement from 2 years ago. Uh, but I think he needs the next challenge. He needs more games. He needs to play with players more of his ilk, and that will improve his. It will work tremendously towards his own development. I think.
So again, we're speculating. Right? We're just
Of
speculating.
course, of
So
course, yeah, yeah,
so, but if I'm speculating, coach, your question is like what is the upside of Hudson spending another year in the AHL? Hard to disagree with the points that you guys are making in terms of the amount of games that he's playing, the overall challenge of what else does he have to prove? Like, you could argue that he wants to win a championship maybe with his brother. Let's say they don't do that this year. Let's say they're not successful, they don't win the championship. That's one thing. Maybe he wants to win with his brother. That's one minor thing. Another thing, again, total speculation, maybe he feels that because we know kind of what his challenge is his size, right? His strength. Maybe he feels that another year in college, even though you're not playing as many games, maybe it's an ability for him to spend more time in the weight room, getting thicker, getting stronger. Yes, you're not going to play as many games, but you have the ability to get a bit stronger, mature a little bit more into his body before he goes pro. Now, I'm not saying that's what he's. I'm just saying your question, coach, was what is the potential upside of him staying in college? There's definitely a few I can think of. I'm not saying he should, but there are arguments as to why he should.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was reading the last one here from
But
Ab
I
Nation.
said that all. I finished that with a dramatic pause to get your reaction, but you weren't even paying attention.
Oh my!
You want
I
me to
It's
don't
so
keep
get
going?
I
easy,
don't get
guys.
that.
He's not going to develop better to stay in college.
I didn't
No, I
say.
don't think so.
He's not going to gain 20 pounds to get college. He's the same weight today he was in October. So he did not increasing his muscle mass. You increase your muscle mass more during the summer. That's why you get your weight you increasing there because you just work on your physical, on your body, on the gym, everything like that. So for me, to be back there, I don't see any development about the fact he's going hanging out with his two brothers.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
think that you
nice,
could
but
spend time in the gym if you're not playing? If you're playing one game a week, obviously you're going to have more time to spend in the gym during the year.
But you can see he did not increasing his muscle mass, Marco. He's the same way.
You're just
no,
reinforcing my
no,
argument.
no. His weight increased, coach. From 2 years ago, his weight went up close to 10 pounds.
Take his weight, Marco, in Enortap in October 12, 2023. And look his weight right now. He don't have the leg
So
of Martin we right now. It's the same
you're,
body frame he was 6 months ago.
you're
But
just
is it the same
reinforcing.
argument? But is it the same argument that we can make for Quinn Hughes? And then look how that developed
I know Marco
and has
said
been
if he
developing.
stay in Boston College or University, he's going to increasing is he's going to be bigger, right?
No, I
I'm
mean he can do that. He can do that anywhere, I believe, Marco. It doesn't have to be at that level. He can be in the AHL where he needs to definitely have a much stronger frame in order to deal with the type of play and players that you have at that level. He can do a
but
year
all I'm
there and
saying.
still.
All I'm saying is that I'm not saying that's what he should do, right? I'm just saying that there are tangible reasons that we don't know about that where it would for him and his entourage that it might make sense for him to stay. And I'm just speculating as to what those might be. I don't agree necessarily with the fact that you can work on your strength as much if you're playing 70 to 80 games versus whatever amount of games
No,
they play
I
in college.
said he's not going to because you said you're going to maybe get bigger during the winter
Mhm.
time. I said no. The only way you get bigger, you transform your body, is really during the off summer. Look, Cole Caulfield. Example is a great
Mhm.
point. Cole Caulfield get what 10 pounds more or maybe muscle mass, whatever it is. During the season, guys,
Yeah.
you have no time to do it. You have no time to do it. Same thing, junior whatever is the league. It's between the off summer, you're increasing your weight at the end, your muscle mass at the end of the day. But You know,
Great
we
comment by
might.
Anthony. We're all gaining mass just by sitting on our couch. That's a good point by Auntie there.
Listening to us speculate.
Here we go. Let's move on for the next thing. And I think we said that one a bit earlier. No, this one. I don't know if I go forward about this one there, but I want to talk about Joel Armia. Um,
Okay.
Joel Mario Armia, the new Mario Bro. Um, Keep or not?
Different
I
man.
understand you have $3.4 million next season, everything like that, and I see that. But I think for the way he performed this year, and let's see this way right now. We just talk about we assume. So assume he have a good start in October, September, November, December, and now we are at the trade deadline. He have like play at the same level of hockey he gave to us in the last 2 months with the Montreal Canadiens. He's going to be at the traded line. Do you keep him or not? Now, if you answer to me in the chat, I keep him. I want to know how much money do you give him? He's going to be 31 years old. I believe he's at 30 years old right now. I could be wrong, but I could not be wrong so much for that.
Yeah, 30, 34, I think, or 33. Yeah.
No, he's right now.
No,
He's
No,
I
he
think
will be. He
he's
will be.
turning
he's at
30, I
30.
think, this year.
He's 30 years old right now. So that's why
Yeah,
I'm
right.
saying.
So
And he's going to turn
if he
31 in
signs
May.
right, so if he signs a, which I think is the only option, I would never sign him to a long term deal. I don't care how cheap the deal is, because obviously, if you go 6, 7, 8 years, that's not going to service Montreal well down the road. But if it's a 2 or 3 year deal, which is what I was trying to allude to, is he'll be about 33, 34 by then, and you know, he's been very consistent ever since he's come back from Laval. I think he's probably, been one of the more consistent players on the team. He knows what his role is. He serves it well. He's a very good penalty killer. He's tough to move off the puck. If he gets a good shot, it's a very good opportunity that he can score. And he's a guy that doesn't complain, right? Like you can give him any role, and he's ready to accept that role. So how much do you give him? If he's willing to go maybe two between 2 and 2.5, I would consider it for 3 years.
Coach, like this is a trap question. Like, are you going to unearth this out of the archives, in 2 years from now and hold it against us? Like, it's just impossible to answer this question, right? There's too many variables that
So
go
I'm
with this, right?
repeat
So,
again, Marco. He's doing the great hockey he gave to us right
yeah,
now at the bottom
yeah,
there.
yeah. I
All right.
understand. I understand the question. But here's the variables that we don't know. So your scenario was okay. It's the trade deadline next year. He's still playing well at the deadline. You keep him that up. So, but what we don't know is like we were talking about earlier. Is Montreal in the hunt next year? If so, then no, you don't move him because he's probably like if he's playing well and you're in the hunt, then you don't move him because at that stage it means that Montreal over the summer they made some commitments, maybe they added like another one or two good players. So that means that they're committed to trying to make the playoffs. So no, you don't move out an asset like this. Like we've talked about, at some point Montreal is going to get out of the asset collection business and they're going to be in the winning business or the building a winning roster business, right? So if they're not in the hunt, then again, it'll be a very similar kind of calculation that we did last year when it comes to Savard. Is what you get for Armia at the deadline worth more than what he's giving you for the end of that season? It's impossible to know what that equation would be then, right? Maybe he's
Yeah,
really helpful because I don't know. It's impossible to know. Assuming though, like okay, assuming we make he has a good end of year or whatever. Again, we don't know if I would re-sign him after that because I don't know where all these other prospects are going to be. Where's Tuck going to be? Where is Kapanen going to be? Where is Tuck going to be? Like Beck, where is he going to be? All those guys, right? So depending on what you're seeing from what's coming up, you don't know if because the biggest argument that, that you had against Armia was that he was kind of holding up a spot for Ullinen, right? So you don't want to do that again, right? Even though Ullinen ended up wasting his opportunity when he did get it eventually, that was the biggest kind of criticism I think this show had about the Armia deal. Wasn't necessarily the money and all that. Like I think here we knew that he was still providing good value, killing penalties, and yes, he was inconsistent, but at least he was doing something, right? He was providing value. But I think the thing that that we were puzzled about is why did Bergevin give him that contract when you're basically blocking Ullinen from getting his shot? I wouldn't want to repeat that mistake unless I feel that we don't have somebody ready to kind of jump in that position. Does that make
So
sense?
yeah, but I disagree because now
Okay.
you
Yeah.
feel the Ottawa Senator. You want to bring back Roy, Hanneman, young player, and you go to remove your veteran out. Now you're going to have who's going to be the player with experience in your team if you don't keep a guys like Armia.
So this is 2 years from now, right? So
No, next
whoever been
year,
playing,
next season,
Next
yeah,
season,
okay.
yeah.
Well, that's what I'm. So that you answered.
next
You
season.
asked me
So
about.
my
Yeah,
point
yeah,
into
but
that is like if he played the level he played, we don't have a lot of
yeah,
players play at the same level like Joel Armia, in my opinion. And you
yeah.
love RHP. I would take Joel Armia 5 times more RHP on my team at that moment. Puck protection, play on the same level like defensively and on the PK. Then if I give him only a 2 years contract, I will not go over 2 years contract. Some people said 3 years. No, it's going to be 32 years old, 33, 34. A 2 years contract at less, not more. $2 million, 2.5 I will be
Maximum.
depends my template on my salary cap, and
Uh,
that's all. For the bottom six, he played a specific role, and I'm okay with that part over there. It's not a transition, but whatever we become better, Marko and Enortap, and 25, 26, we want to be sure that team is set up, player with experience around the team, and this is like type of player guys you like to have on your team. Like you're going to be rip me, but like the last time you hear Jake Evans about him, you never heard anything about Joel Armia and Jake Evans. Never, never,
Yeah. Yeah.
never. They love to play for
Agreed.
Montreal. They have great, you know, hockey players, and they are good behaviors around that. Again, and I said they have to keep him completely like he's going to be, but on the final start of what is going to become, you need Marco, some kind of veteran around the team. Now, of course, in 2025, 26, they signed Leon Tressadol and they signed Mikko Rantanen. It's understand that. By the end of the day, a bottom six, I think you need those kind of big bodies, 6'4", and 230 10 protect the pocket. I think Amir could be that way. But we're not sign him
well,
more.
you're on the record, coach. You're on the record. I at this point, like, there's just too many things that we don't know about where the team will
Yeah,
be.
there's
It's impossible to know. It's impossible.
there are a lot of variables, but I think again, all of this that we're doing tonight is all speculating based on
Yeah,
what the situation is at this point, right? And
yeah.
I agree. As long as it's not more than a 2 or 3 year contract at the $2 to $2.5 million, I don't see how he hurts you. Like if you look at his productivity over the last 3 years, I mean, he's been consistent. It hasn't been much, but he's been consistent, and most of it has been goals. Like he hasn't. There hasn't been a steady decline, and if he continues what he was doing, what he's been doing since he came back from Laval, then maybe he can step it up a little bit and he starts entering 25 to 28 points a year again for a fourth liner. I think that's adequate.
I think the only
Marco,
thing that you can
Marco,
really,
I think the best statement is this one in our If Amir play like Mario and he does not play like Joel, he's going to be fine. It's coming from Francois Pitt, by the way. Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll change his name. We'll change his
Yeah.
passport and
Like,
everything.
listen, guys. Like, I really like. I really like Armia, and I agree. Like, at some nights he's maybe the Montreal Canadiens' best player over the last 25 games, right? So
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
taking away
arguably.
anything from what he's doing on the team now. I like, coach. I think it's fair to ask the question: what do you do with Armia at the deadline next year? You know, and like my position is, if you're in the hunt, you don't move him. If you're not in the hunt, then it's very similar to David Savard conversation. Is what you're going to get for Armia worth more than keeping him around for his experience? Yes or no? And if it's no, you keep him for the end of the year, and then depending on what you see in your pipeline, and you're evaluating your team, if it makes sense, then based on many things we don't know, okay, maybe you sign him, but impossible to know right now.
So we're going to finish the show on the right way, talking about the goals at the Bell Center. We know
Us
that
this year?
at the forum we have Phantom, and then we have a new Phantom, a new coach with the Montreal Canadiens. But he's on the ice. Usually he's on the ceiling, but this one is on the ice performing every game. I'm talking about Josh Anderson. My question to you guys is, what to do? What is like it's become painful to watch him. Like it's
Yeah,
I feel at the point I feel bad for him. Like I feel bad. Like everything he does, it's again him. I know he drew a penalty last game, right? But I see a lack of effort sometimes. I see sometimes he go in the corner, he could wrap that guy very hard, like, but he could, like, he go there and that's it. That's all. He does enough to look okay, but not good enough to be the player we're looking for. And that's what I see Josh Anderson said at the beginning of the year. Like, it's really bad right now. I know you have an article, he's one of the worst players with a bad contract, everything, the value, return, everything like that. But at the end of the day,
Yeah,
and we still have Marko and after him for 3 years.
yeah, it's painful.
So,
it
Coach,
is. It is.
yeah, yeah. I think I had him for my headline. Yeah, and we're just talking about Yoel Armia, right? So I'll go back to that idea. Like, the only thing I can think of, because Martin Saint Louis tried to deconstruct him and build him back up, right? He tried to tear him down and build him back up as a more cerebral player with a better IQ that was able to read, capitalize on reads. I've made that analogy
Wrong
many times. It's not in his programming. He's just not able to do it. Okay, so
at that
you have to
point. Yeah,
scrap. It's probably just confused him more than anything else, right? So at this stage, you have to really just you have to turn him into Yoel Armia. That's what you have to do. That's the simplest example, right? What did we just say about Yoel Armia? Habs fans, not all of them, but many Habs fans can live with Armia and the amount of money that he makes and the production he has because he brings value to the team and he impacts the game in positive ways. So what St. Louis needs to do is, and this is one of the rare times I'll criticize maybe St. Louis a little bit, right? Is that sometimes your vision for another person is not possible, right? Like sometimes it's almost like if you have a daughter and you feel strongly that she should be a gymnast. Okay, you've always had a dream that your daughter one day will be a gymnast. Well, you can try to push her to be a gymnast, but if she doesn't have the passion for it or the abilities to do it, it's going to become very frustrating for everyone, right? So Saint Louis needs to understand that whatever he's been trying to do with Anderson is not working. They need to go back to the drawing board, figure out what can he bring to the team that is going to have a positive impact, and you start from there and you build him back up again with a different focus. And guys, that's how players get confidence again, right? They feel that they're positively contributing, they're doing that. And then if he's succeeding in the very specific things that Martin Saint-Louis wants him to do and helping the team, you hope that that will translate in increased confidence, and maybe he's squeezing his stick a bit less, and then the puck starts going in a bit more, and everything else. At the very least, at least you're getting a guy that is doing a job for you that's going to help you win. So, short answer, you need to turn him into a type of Yoel Armia. That's my answer. Final answer.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up some good points. Just for fun, I was going to make my headliner tonight. Who the most misunderstood player, Josh Anderson. But I thought that would open up a real kick-ass session tonight, so I didn't want to go that route. But you know what? Ever since he got that high ankle sprain last year when he went to the net hard towards the end of the season, he obviously hasn't been the same player. Now, I'm not attributing his lack of productivity and adaptation to whatever system Martin St. Louis wants to put him in to that, but we're noticing this year he's not really taking it to the net like he used to. Is there like a mental block there that is created? Created this situation? I don't know, because sometimes you suffer a certain injury and you have to get back on the horse and get back up and go, because otherwise you're not going to move. In his case, I think you're right, Marco. They're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. That's the feeling I'm getting, and he doesn't quite have the ability to adapt to that system, whatever it is that they want him to do differently. And if you think back, even coach, you remember when Bergevin said, "There's players that take you to the playoffs, and then there's players that win for you in the playoffs." And Josh Anderson, strikes me as the kind of guy that I think he would produce in a playoff situation like we've seen in the past. But I don't think he's the kind of player that will take you anywhere near the playoffs in the regular season. So I think that's a situation where he's better suited maybe under a different system and a different case with another team. So what do you do? I mean, yeah, you can tell him to go back north south and see if that takes you anywhere, but it's disruptive to the whole line. Remember this year, like any line he's played on, those players have stopped producing for whatever.
Oh,
Well, we know the reason. We know the reason, because there's that unpredictability in terms of what he's going to be doing.
the play dies. The play just dies on his stick continuously.
That's right. Yeah,
He can't
and you're
continue.
forced to come back defensively, and you never get any momentum moving offensively. So it's a tough predicament to be in, only because of the money again that he's making, and at this stage even the term that he still has left. I say if you can trade him or include him as part of something over the summer, or pull something like you did with Weber, where you have a team that's trying to get to the floor of the cap, and you might have to throw something in there to entice. You do that.
Well, you could probably only afford to do that with. So we've talked about this before, right? So some of us would like Hughes to use some of his assets to free up some cap space by adding a positive asset to a negative asset to get rid of it, right? But you can probably
Yeah,
only afford to do that with one guy, because you can't, like, you have two bad contracts. You've got Gallagher and you've got Anderson. Now Gallagher has played a little bit better
different
recently.
individuals. Yeah, different individuals
Yeah,
though.
yeah, but
One has heart.
assuming that, and I don't really believe Hughes would do that for either guy, because he hates giving away assets for free. I
Yeah,
personally, I've said on here before that I would move an asset to get rid of one of them, because it would then free up cash and you can use it right away to improve yourself, right? But if you had to choose, like, which one, like, if you can only do one of those guys, which one are you packaging something to deliver Gallagher to San Jose, because San Jose is really the only team I can think of that it would make sense, because they know they're going to be bad for at least 4 to 5 years. So to me, that they're really the only trading partner that makes sense, that wouldn't mind eating an asset if they can gain assets by eating a contract like that. That's what they need, right? They need to like they're in that asset collection phase that I keep talking about. That's what they need to do right now. So if they can collect assets by taking on a bad contract like Gallagher or Anderson, but who are you using that bullet on? Is it Anderson or Gallagher?
I I mean, if you're looking at it from a financial perspective, obviously it makes more sense with Gallagher, no doubt about that, because he's making more for, I think, a little bit longer than Anderson. But if you're looking at who can still provide you a useful service and still has the heart to play, and to me that means a lot. Having the heart to go out there. I might not be at the same level as these other players, but I'm gonna die trying. I would say keep Gallagher and move Anderson. I think he's more movable in terms of teams wanting at least somebody that has size and possibly could, return to somewhere near 15 to 20 goals. I'm not saying he would, but the potential's been there before and he's done it. So I think he'd be an easier asset to move.
Yeah, I agree. If I had to choose one, I'd be using that bullet to move Anderson over Gallagher. It would be a tough decision though. The other reason
Yeah.
is that it's more likely that Galley will go on LITR than Anderson too, right? So
At the end of the day, I think business side, business way is more like Gallagher, right, on business. But for me, for influence around on the daily as a coach, I would take Gallagher over Anderson. On my opinion, if you want to have a good, the team return that. And I'm looking about Josh Anderson, and that reflect me, guys, on Marc Bergevin. Like, if you look about every game, by the way,
Love how.
they lost.
we have breaking news for the Montreal Canadiens. They announced Josh Anderson is going to finish his last game Saturday night. That's complete a 69 game of the season. And he stopped at 69 in the last 3 years. So we expect him to get something would happen again the Carolina Hurricane or maybe the Flyers, but would more look like it would be Saturday night. Look like his last 3 seasons is a 69 game.
Oh, really? Wow.
So
Okay.
this is a final for him. His contract maybe is 69. We don't know yet, but it's a real number go with him. But that's a subject for the thing. But I look about his career 17, 19, 17, 19, 21
Yeah.
last year with Montreal Canadiens. His biggest season is 27. And because he got 27 gold, Marc Bergevin gave the money. And that's something you have to be careful about this. You have to be, he did it at 24 years old. So his expectation, and also he never reached over at 47.1 year. The rest is always been at 32. So he usually
Yeah.
does X number the goal, but he stopped at 6-9 game. And then he said, I cannot go over 32 points. This is what I do in the last couple of years with the Montreal Canadiens. So really weird number for Josh Anderson. 32 points in the last season, 69 point a game in the last season. So he cannot reach 32 points. He have only 8 goals, but we'll see if he can get hurt the next 2 games. But at the end of the day, $5.5 million is not good.
We're not advocating that on Hockey Nation. We're not advocating it.
And we are at the end of the show. We're going to keep this under the 2 hours tonight. We're not going to predict the next 2 games, but I would like to hear what you expect for the Montreal Canadiens. We're not to give you take a note about your prediction of the week, but what is your prediction for the Montreal Canadiens Thursday and Saturday until we see you, maybe both of you on the next show or the weekly recap. So let's start with Marko.
Ooh, I hate this. So I know they're playing Philly tomorrow.
Philadelphia
Who are they playing on Saturday?
Carolina.
on Carolina.
Okay. Yikes. Okay. Well, Philadelphia, I I don't like that matchup for Montreal just because they, Montreal can maybe kind of catch teams that maybe aren't 100% working hard, like, or whatever. But Philadelphia, we know that their effort's going to be there and they're going to work hard, right? So, and then Carolina right now is just an absolute steamroller of a team that's just absolutely on fire. So maybe they'll go 2-0 then, coach, because they shouldn't win. I don't think they should win either of those games, because I don't think it's a good matchup for Montreal. So, but based on recent history, they'll probably win both.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm inclined to go 1-1, but I always worry about that. That first game back from a long trip,
Yeah,
road trip, and that's who they catch is Philadelphia. I mean, the only good thing is Philadelphia really hasn't been setting the world on fire lately.
still getting
So
points, man.
yeah, they're getting some points, yeah, here and there. I'll stick to 1-1. Carolina's going to be tough unless they're able to get a good 1 or 2 goal lead like they have the couple last games against teams, and then it makes it a very interesting game the rest of the way. But we'll see.
I could be wrong, but I think Montreal always a difficult time to play against Carolina.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Right?
Yeah.
They don't win a lot over there, and they perform well. And Kokanimi think is Brandon Point when he played against Montreal, but it looked like more like a Jim Roberts right now. But there's such a time. But at the end of the day, Flowers guy is this is a trap game. Uh,
Yes.
it's a game where we know one thing: the Flyers going to show up. They're going to go at the war, and they all battle for the playoff. So we know they're going to do their best, or they want to play like can take that game easy because it's Montreal. They want to play the playoffs, so the wild card is on the is questionable for them. On the flip side, Montreal is what kind of team is going to be. The team is going to be back at home and then play the first game, and they have a good time with the family, or is it the game say, we are right now with Martin Saint Louis and we're going to go that way. So it's really hard to read the Montreal Canadiens for game Thursday night. So I'm really big concerned. My before Enortap, I was going to set 1-1 because of Enortap said 1-1. I'm going to go now with 0-1-1.
That was my second choice.
So that would be my point behind that. So we'll see what could happen, but I think that would be two good game for the Montreal Canadiens. Fun. What? 11 game remaining,
11 games. That's it.
The
right?
stretch,
And
yeah,
I feel that way enough. That last year, Montreal Canadiens had only 8 W in the last 25 games. So they did not finish on the
That's
right foot. They not, they wasn't hard. The Vancouver Canucks, when they signed a Rick Tocchet, they finished strong with 14, 7, and 2, if I can remember or record it properly. They finished with 650 at the end. And look what the season. My point behind that, it would be good for the Montreal Canadiens finish at least with 500 or a little bit higher until to the next 11 game, or they leave a good impression, Marko, and Enortap, and could build from that end of the year to start next year with a little bit more hope and to say, you know what, we prove it this year. But what a great year so far for Montreal Canadiens. I still predict 70, 72 points. They are still on that range, in my opinion. But again, we'll see what they're going to do for the next two games. Manuel. Samuel Montembeault expect to be between the pipe tomorrow and possible Primo Sunday night against the Carolina. Until then, my friend, we want to thank the co-host, Mr. Enortap and Marko again. They deliver great hockey knowledge tonight. And then we want to thank the moderator Luciano and Ron. We saw Ron early in the chat. And then, of course, RJ Calabro with all the update he did tonight. And then finally, all the people in the chat to keep that conversation with respect and the right way. And of course, with all the light we got there. We wish you an amazing, great night. But we want to remember because that's who they are.
You are awesome. You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you.
Here we go. That's conclude another locker room report of the Montreal Canadiens. Until the next time, we'll be back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock p.m. For the Montreal Canadiens host the Flyers at the Bell Center. Welcome back, John Tortorella. He broke his thumb. Something happened to him, by the way.
His wrist.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the humor is he hit the two reporters during the press conference. He broke his we'll see if it was true or not.
Couturier.
Until then, be well, be healthy. Find a way not only dominate your day, but find a way to dominate the first half of what Mr. Enortap.
What else? You're 2024.
You did it again. Have an amazing, great night of a day, sweet dream. And the Hockey Nation Show and the App Nation will tell you one more thing. We love you, people. Have a great rest of the week. I will see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you so much, Marko and Enortap.
Good night.
Thanks. Night, everyone.
Booyah!